Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, good evening, good evening. I hope you are all well. Do you know what we love about technical glitches? Technical glitches are those things that happen at the moment that you go absolutely live. And there's absolutely nothing to do. We've got a message coming in already, but here's the interesting thing. It's not what happens to us in life, it's how we deal with it. So what we're dealing with tonight is some of those things that happen to us. Like's just happened to me, but in a slightly different way. All will become very, very clear. You're welcome to episode 3 of the Survival Stream series, powered by the fantastic global leaders OneStream Live. I am indeed Joe Shepherd, the brand ambassador. Before we step into tonight's conversation, though, a quick reset on what this series is about. The Survival Stream series really began as a 4-part idea, but is now evolving into 6. So we're running from December through February, part 3 now, March, April, and May. More to follow on the change. Excuse me. And the reason that there's another 2 is because industries, niches, genres have been asking us to include them and the difficulties they're having in their space and how people involved in their areas can survive. So that's what we're doing. So it's gone from 4 to 6, which is great. The conversation really clearly needs more space, and that's the message that we're getting through. Now, this series isn't about hype. It's not about hacks. It's not about chasing the glorious algorithm, which changes on a 24-hour basis and nobody really knows and puts more stress and pressure on you. Well, that's what tonight's all about. It's about how creators, performers, organizations, musicians can build a digital presence while they actually sustain themselves and their craft. At the end of the show, I'll be sharing the link to the accompanying knowledge or blog article so you can explore the full thinking framework behind this entire series. Now, tonight really matters, not because we're talking about musicians and performers, and I've got one of my oldest friends on who's just a gifted, talented human being and performer, but because we're talking about people who love what they do, and in some cases loved what they did. People who showed up, the same people who gave us their energy, their creativity, their time, until the pressure to keep up slowly took the joy out of that. Now, we hear still wrongly, a lot about consistency. Oh, post more, stream more, engage more social content, be everywhere. But what we don't talk about enough is the cost, the quiet burnout, the mental load. The moment someone steps back, not because they failed or they're not good enough, but because it became all too much. Now, there's a word for that loss, by the way, the loss of joy and satisfaction, and it's sometimes called anhedonia, where you can be still very good at the top of your game, immensely gifted in your craft, but something that you once loved, and the reason why you're doing something, it stops giving anything back. So the ability is still there. The talent is still there, but the satisfaction has drained away. Anhedonia, look it up. I think an awful lot of us suffer from that from time to time in our lives. Now, that's not a weakness for sure. That's overload, what we call cognitive mental overload, and an awful lot of people suffer for that, but it's not really recognized or talked about. I want to bring that message. Now, tonight's guest, my good friend Mark Tween, is a musician, an acoustic performer who has lived that reality. He's currently fully off social media. There's no social media presence whatsoever. Now, his story isn't dramatic. Mark's story is honest, and that's why it matters, because this isn't about blaming platforms. It's not about longing for the old days where things were better. It's about asking better questions. You know, how do creative people stay visible without losing themselves in the process? That's survival. That's why it's part of the Survival Stream, and that's tonight. Please welcome my very good friend and my guest tonight into the studio, Mark Tween. Mark, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Joe. How about yourself?
Absolutely brilliant, mate. Couldn't be better. It's always better when the grass is beneath your feet rather than above your head, which is pretty cool. Just before I go into your background, my friend, here we go. Welcome to tonight's show via linked via YouTube. So don't forget, we multicast to up to 50 different locations at once, including your website. So I hope to learn a lot from this live broadcast tonight. We hope you do. If you've got any more questions, then throw them in. And don't forget, you can go to onestream.live, and the bottom right-hand corner, it's a little red circle with a white envelope, and you can contact the customer service team there, who are all humans and are also the technical development team as well. So they know far more than I ever can. But if you want to know anything, ping anybody watching tonight, ping in the word survive, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Now, Mark, welcome. For those of you who don't know you are a general pub and acoustic singer, right? So you've performed live in lots of different locations and to lots and lots of your gigs, your weekly gigs during COVID, mate, were just global. They were just brilliant. It was just, it was raw. It was, blimey, the amount of people who used to watch you, the satisfaction and joy genuinely you gave. I don't need to blow smoke up your proverbial office, mate, because it's because you're young, gifted, and talented, mate, and that comes out in your craft, that wonderful warmness that you've had. Now you've connected with those audiences face to faces in pubs and locations, and for a period of time you were very active online, streaming, posting, trying to build your presence. But what's your background, though, mate? How did you get into music and live streaming? Take us through that.
Well, music is something I've always enjoyed listening to, particularly. And then, as a kid, learned to play the guitar. I was always fascinated with that. And the 50s, 60s rock and roll is what got me into it. Things like Buddy Holly, Elvis Presley, Eddie Cochran, that sort of thing. I grew up listening to that with my dad, and I wanted to play that sort of thing. So, I got into the guitar and started playing, and then never really did anything public until, the main sort of public stuff I used to do was back in the days when we were in the army, and I used to grab a guitar during mess do's and things like that, and write silly parodies that didn't always impress the higher echelons, but for the joy of it, basically. It was the joy of it. And then when I got back into doing things, I started doing open mic nights and things in Civvy Street, and the popularity picked up, and I got better at what I did, and people just started offering me to play in their pubs, and it was the interaction. It was having that thing with the crowd. I always loved going to pub gigs. So I'm a pub musician. I do pubs and I do beer festivals, that sort of thing. I'm not, I don't want to go on X Factor. I don't want to do big stadium. I want to play in pubs where you're close with the people and you can have a bit of banter. And so it was always about the interaction for me rather than performing. I mean, I don't rate myself. I know you've said some very kind words. I'm not the best guitarist or the best singer in the world, but I can entertain. I can engage with people. And when you've got that combination, I can hold a tune and, I can play the songs. I mean, as you know, from my live streams, I can go for 5 hours without repeating a song and without stopping. It's just, that's the autism. I think it all just sits in there, and I can just regurgitate the music. It's that passion. So I got into it just for the enjoyment of the back and forth. I never wanted to make a living out of it. I thought that would make it stressful. So I've always had a full-time job and sort of done it in my spare time, so to speak. And then, never got into the live streams until COVID hit and pub gigs weren't happening. Pubs weren't happening. People were stuck in their houses. I was fortunate enough to be a key worker that was working every day. But at the weekends, I didn't, in the evenings and stuff, I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't do anything with my music, and people were sat at home not being able to go out and enjoy music. So sort of it started off as a bit of a play around, really, on social media. I'd fancied playing to someone and didn't think much of it. Set up my phone. I was actually sat in my trailer tent when I was airing it out, and got the guitar out and just played to the phone, and ping, 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 people coming up, just starting writing messages, and then suddenly that interaction was back. And because people can obviously message while you're doing it, and they were requesting songs, and then they had a social amongst themselves. It started to build, and they would talk to each other while I was singing, and I could read it while I was going, and just, yeah, it just started off as a one-off. I'm just playing for me, so if you want to listen, listen. And then it turned into the, you know, me and my mate developed the lockdown sessions, and then I started doing my weekly shows then, and you know, was it Friday nights or Saturday nights? I can't remember what it was now. Just from my music room, getting drunk on camera whilst everyone had a drink. I had a drink, and just playing music, taking requests, and yeah,
that was so, that was so real, though. You know, it was the thing.
But it wasn't polished, was it?
Over podcasting, live streaming. You know, especially when you go to as many different locations, and I think it's a shame that enough people didn't really understand what a brand like OneStream Live could have helped them with to go into those locations and take the pressure off. We'll talk a little bit more about that shortly, but it's an outlet, isn't it? But it's a really interesting choice that you didn't want to sort of make money from. An awful lot of people now still going down the same road, but they're going more to where there's a safe community where they can do, where they can, somebody will, you know, sponsor them or buy them a, you know, a cup of tea or throw them some, you know. I think there's more easier ways now to do it. I had a message just come in then while I was trying to, because people think when we say it goes to 50 different locations, it does, but not all of the locations, because they're not controlled by OneStream Live. The messages, we have a thing called integrated chat where a number of the sites all come in, like we saw the message before, but some, excuse me, I monitor, and one was, is it all about audio, about, you know, poor audio? No, it was a play on words, very brilliant play on words by the marketing team at OneStream Live, stop bad audio, because it's about performers tonight and musicians, and part of that bad audio play on words, just to give a bit of context for people, was then you can see the professionalism of the audio setup that we have in the studio, but also when the audio for the performer or the musician, it becomes bad because of the pressure that's on them. So that's what that was, just to explain the context to one of the messages I had through. So yeah, for you, was it a point where it got to when, you know, when you're doing this stuff online, where is it self-induced pressure, Mark? So you had a Friday, Saturday sort of things, especially during COVID, where it got bigger and bigger. Did you feel that you were under pressure yourself, or was it an expectation from others? You know, because what you're doing is you're connecting with people. And then the connection and the engagement, especially from a live stream, it can be quite full on, can't it? Because you then have to reply to those people as well. And it's not just when you're doing your sometimes 5-6 hours, you're then afterwards. And then people are saying, when you're back on, and can you do this night, and can you do that? How did you find that? Because sometimes it can be quite overwhelming, I find.
It very much so. That's exactly right. And I find both pressures were pretty much there. There was the pressure from other people. There was, you know, them wanting more from you, and there was the pressure yourself again to get it right. Obviously, I mean, like you're saying there about the audio thing. Actually, you know, I started just with my phone acoustically playing on my phone. I couldn't test the audio. I didn't know what it was like. I was not good at that sort of thing. And then, you know, I started buying different leads and stuff like that, so I could plug my phone into a speaker that, you know, a monitor speaker I had where I could control some levels, and then I could listen to that. And then it got to the point where I was using a MacBook and some cabling, and then I could connect it to my mixing desk. And then it started to become about making sure my audio was perfect and getting my guitar and my levels right. I would actually do a private live stream with a friend of mine and say, can you check my audio for me? You know, I was doing sound checks, and that sort of thing was building. And then, like you say, you get the people wanting songs and stuff. I mean, I had people requesting songs. I remember I used to have a dartboard on the wall, and it had a blackboard, and people would suggest songs. Do you remember that? They would suggest songs to me, and they'd go, oh, do you know this one? I was like, no, I don't. But I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll write it down. I've got a bit of chalk, and I'll write it on the board next to me. And then people would go, oh, what about that? I said, oh, I'll write that one down. And then yeah, okay, I play the songs I knew, and sometimes struggle for a few, and play for a good few hours, and then people didn't want you to stop. But that's the same with like pub gigs and that. They've had a few bevies, you've had, they're like, oh, keep going, keep going. It's like, no, I've got to go to bed. I've been working all week. And, I was married at the time. My wife was in the next room trying to sleep, and it was, it was long suffering. Well, there's a reason I'm divorced now. I don't think it was the live streams, but it was, it was a case of getting all that sort of right, and then, but it was the stuff that I was doing off screen was really applying, because, like I say, I wanted to get it right, so I was practicing with setups and getting new cable in and things like that, and making the best way to get the sound right during the week. But then I was also trying to learn the songs that were on the board that people wanted to hear, and I go, I'll try and learn that one. So I'm trying to learn new music as well. But all this time, I've got a full-time job, I've got my dogs, I've got my wife. I've got a life there that's going on. But to these people, it was all about that show, and they saw the show. They didn't see the rehearsal time. They didn't see the warm-ups, the practices. That. Okay, yeah, I did.
It's that iceberg effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
The show's a little tiny bit above the water, but below it overwhelming the amount of time it can take to prep. And,
I mean, us this evening, we were sat for about 15, 20 minutes just prepping stuff, and that was, just to have a chat, really. And obviously you've got more to do behind the scenes at your end with your graphics and your sound stuff. But, I was practicing for warming up for a good hour, 2 hours before, getting everything set up. I'd have to have a wind down for about an hour afterwards. I can't just stop. And then, but that's just on the night. Then you've got during the week, all the planning, all the prep, all the practicing. You've got to keep your voice going. You've got to keep your skills up, changing your strings, all that sort of thing. It all takes its toll. And, like I say, it can build.
At what point, Mark, did it start feeling different? Was it comparison, thinking that, well, I've got to keep up because all these other things need doing and these other people? Was it the constant posting, or, like you say, where it's all the stuff behind the scenes? It's cause and effect. You caused your own problem by being professional and good. I love the dartboard. I remember now. I've forgotten about that. So the dartboard on the side, we'd send things in that we wanted you to do, and they're not giving a monkey's toss about actually how that would affect you. It was like, I wanted Mark to sing my song. I wanted it there. Actually, I wanted you to learn in 30 seconds, not to actually wait for a week. But that was good. But it does get to the point where I suppose you feel that you can never switch off. It is constant, but you've got this full-time job when everybody else was at home during COVID, or most others were at home.
Yeah.
What I think you've covered really what it sort of looked like day to day alongside your job, the dogs, your wife then at the time. How much mental space did that really take from you, though? Were there existing things there? Do you think that it then triggered them, or was it just a brand new thing that you hadn't experienced before that was like, this cognitive mental overload, which then leads in?
A combination of those things. Again, you've covered a couple of things, but both of which equally important. I mean, I've suffered badly with my mental health over the years. I mean, I know you're fully aware, and I'm not ashamed to talk about it. I think people should talk about their mental health.
Yep.
Obviously, that's not what this show's about, but it's a contributing factor. And I've suffered badly with my mental health. I've got to very low places. And they were in effect at that time. My PTSD, my depression, my anxiety were all very prevalent. 2020, 2021 was a major bad turnaround time for my mental health. And also my undiagnosed autism. I only got diagnosed with that a few months back, and there were overloads, there were burnouts that were happening that I didn't know why, because I wasn't aware that I was autistic. But then again, back to the sort of perfectionism and getting everything right and having everything had to be precise. It all makes more sense now. So those pressures, there were background mental health pressures that were affected, and that did affect the overall issue. And also, the new pressures of live streaming, being to please, seeing the numbers in the corner of how many people are watching you.
Oh, mate.
And then if you watch that drop, it's like watching people walk out of a pub while you're playing. But it's easy to just flick between videos and stuff online. To you just going, oh, I'll watch that for a bit. Oh, I'll go and watch it. As soon as you go, I know you've gone. But you wouldn't just walk into a pub and then just walk out of a pub and go to another, it does have an effect.
That's brilliant, mate. It's not brilliant the effect it has, but it's brilliant you bring that point up, because I've covered a lot in the last 6 months about this whole. There was the rise. Excuse me. There was the rise of the influencer, and then it was just rubbish. People who just couldn't, wouldn't trust them to sit the right way on a potty, let alone influence anything in the world. And we both know them. And then you had people like, had 50,000 or 75,000, but there was no engagement in them there. And then there was people like yourself who had lesser numbers, but the engagement was absolutely through the roof. And then that effect, like you say, when the numbers start going down, and then there's the vanity metrics, and like, well, I didn't get as many as last week. Actually, you probably had better people than last week. You had more engagement, but we're all looking, because we were taught to look at this figure. Whereas once I think you step away from that, I think it's an awful lot easier to do. Was there a moment when you actually realised that this wasn't feeling creative anymore, and it had stopped being the reason you did it, which was the fun?
Definitely, there was a time. It was starting to. I was starting to feel stress for having to be there every week.
Sure.
I mean, like you say, I created it myself. I didn't have to be there every week. I was choosing to be there every week. But then the people wanted me there every week, and I felt the compulsion to be there for them because I said I would. And it stopped feeling that. I actually had a breakdown mid-performance, mid-live stream. On one of my live streams, I was in the middle of I can still remember the song, actually. It's one you'll be familiar with. It was actually American Pie, which my old parody of. But I was in the middle of that, and I just broke down, and I just went, I'm sorry, I've got to, and I just signed off straight, and I literally mid-song. And those that obviously that knew me personally, that had my number or had my wife's. What actually happened was my wife ended up coming up in the room because someone had messaged her to go and check on me, and it literally, the pressure just got, and I just got overwhelmed, total burnout, and literally just broke down on screen and just went, right, I'm off, and left. And I took a break at that point. That's when I was going weekly, and that caused me to take a break from it. Because it just overwhelmed me.
Thank you for your honesty, brother.
No, all the time.
When you, I was giggling inside when it was like when Mark was telling the story about this parody of American Pie. We were both in the forces together, and we had what we call a dinner night. It's like a formal dinner at night when the big bosses were there, and there's a particular big boss who, let's say, it didn't particularly like some things, and Mark did this parody, which even I didn't know about, and I was a regional commander at the time, regional policing commander at the time, and I came out with this, and it was one of the funniest things in the world. And as a fellow commander, I wasn't meant to sort of laugh and giggle, but we had a very, very tight team, so that's why we were giggling to ourselves. Just again, a little bit of context. As Dara O'Brien, the great Irish comedian, would say, "Sure, you had to be there." But thank you for that honesty, mate. It's life, and it's what happens, and those things trigger us. But when you stepped away, what did that feel like? Was it relief? Was it fear? Both? Something else?
Yeah, I suppose it was. There was an amount of relief in that the sort of the pressure was off, but there was a feeling of failure. Yeah, guilt for not, because a lot of people, they would say, they look forward to my weekly performances. That's because they're not going out anywhere. Yeah. That's their pub. Some people, I used to have a guy who'd sit and watch in his hot tub. There were people that sit out in their garden and they'd have a bar and they'd be listening over the fence with their neighbours, sort of thing. But you used to have George, who was always log in from Australia, and everyone would start calling him Aussie George. Yeah. To AT, he's back in the country now. But he, they would all log on, and it would be a ritual. They'd send me videos of them watching on their TV. They'd have it on their TV. They'd have their drinks and they'd make a night of it. But they'd all talk to each other as well, because say you guys watching, we're all talking to each other and having conversation and friendships will be. I was seeing people from down here in Cornwall, people up in Scotland, family members up there, and people from London and Georgia and Australia, and people all over the country that didn't know each other suddenly had this friendship group online that met through music and having the banter. They start bantering with, and they didn't know each other, and I felt like I was letting them down because I wasn't there. And the ones that I got a lot of private messages through my social media for it, and people going, "Hope you're okay, take your time." They were all very nice about it. They could see that it was a problem for me. But yeah, there was the element. I don't know if it ever felt like relief. Actually, there was an ease of pressure.
Yeah,
but not so much relief, because then there was the guilt and there was the letdown. There was all that, and I enjoyed the performing, like you say. I did it. I was doing it for the enjoyment. I wasn't getting anything out of it other than that interaction, that joy, the feeling I got at the pub. When I'd go to a pub and perform, having that interaction because people could message. That's why I never wanted to get into it, because I didn't think I'd have that interaction. I didn't realise how interactive it was going to be, and it was phenomenal.
Powerful.
And then just that breakdown, that overwhelm, and there was an element of fear, and there was definitely letting people down, the guilt of that, and it was just over, and I just knew I had to, for my own good, take a break. And I didn't pick up the guitar for a couple of weeks. I just literally had to leave it, and my social media presence took a really low, and it was a strange feeling. It was weird, because it wasn't a place I was expecting to be, really.
What you're describing here. I hear from an awful lot of people across a lot of different industries and genres, and they're looking for a way to be able to put packages together so they can do more with less, but they don't know how to, or they can't afford to. Or if you're a small to local business, or an individual, I hate the expression solopreneur, but a standalone individual business owner, like I say, or small to medium, you're doing everything from delivering the stuff, the product, the service, whatever the case may be. How do you operationally get that out there? How do you strategically come up with your plans? And that's bloody overwhelming in its own way. So I'm hearing that from an awful lot of people. I mean, I felt that myself. The last 2 years of turning the rugby live streaming into a proper business, because I thoroughly enjoyed it. But obviously, Jill had the cancer, and you're building all those things alongside. So, I made a purpose. Because I've got some new projects starting this year, and obviously just got married. So made the purpose decision for the first quarter of this year to take a step back slightly, where I could refocus and restructure what I'm doing. Because of that, because I was struggling with anhedonia, massively so, And it's not a dramatic collapse. It's just a slow erosion. And then halfway through a show, like you say, ping, it's just gone. So, but here's the thing. It's not just musicians. Like I say, it's small business owners trying to post every day, coaches who are trying to go live 3 days a week, educators building audiences while they're actually still doing their job, community leaders. We've got one probably next month on community leaders and religious organizations. The same, trying to do your core role, but managing comments at midnight. So the issue isn't motivation for us. The issue is unsustainable systems. We built a content culture around frequency because that's what we were taught to do. That's what we were told that platforms and the algorithms needed. But we've got to build it around the structure. And that's where this series, the Survival Stream, really sits. So most people didn't fail at being visible. You didn't fail at being visible. The opposite. The model failed them. The model failed you. It's failing others because of that poor management of expectations. And the only way to stay relevant for some is to be consistently on. Then eventually everything gives, and often it's that joy and that satisfaction. Mark, I could sit and talk to you for hours and hours about a whole pile of things, and I've got some more ideas of other things that I want to go through, but we're limited on these short shows. But before we close tonight, there'll be people watching, buddy, musicians, creators, business owners who might quietly or not so quietly recognize themselves in part of your story. Maybe they're still in it. Maybe they're close to stepping away. Maybe they already have, like yourself. If you could speak directly to them, what would you say? What do you wish somebody perhaps had said to you earlier? Is there a warning sign that people should pay attention to?
I suppose it's becoming reliant on it. I suppose I'd say don't be reliant on it. I think social media and broadcasting, this sort of thing, it's a tool, and it's a tool that needs to be used for your benefit. If you stop using it, if you let it control you, it's no longer the tool. You are. You need to use it for what you want, not for what you expect other people to want, I'd say. And like you were saying there, I mean, I'm not the most technically minded person. I never understood the whole social media. But yeah, I was like, I've got to keep posting. I would create videos to advertise the show at the weekend. I used to make little clips and all that just to keep the content there. I'd make pretty funny ones and stuff. But that all took time and effort and editing. But I was just told I need constant thing for people to be at people's streams so that they'd know I'd be doing it, because there'd be countless people doing live streams during lockdown. So it's, do it for the right reasons, I'd say, and don't do it because of what other people expect you to do. Do it, like me. I did it because I enjoyed it. The people that I wanted there were the interactive people, and like I say, when the numbers dropped, it was about the right people being in the room. And I could have 80 odd people watching, but if only 20 of them were interacting, who were the other 60? I don't know.
I call them lurkers. Sometimes there are lurkers there, but listen, mate, it's powerful. And I think what you just said there is really important, because, stepping back sometimes doesn't mean that you have failed. It means that you've listened. And most of the time, the best times in our life is when we are listening to ourselves. It's the most responsible decision you can make. And sometimes it takes us a while because we feel that guilt, or we feel we're letting somebody else down. But actually, if you don't look after you first, then you can't look after anything else. And if it's not fun, then why would you come? So what your story shows us isn't failure. It's about clarity. Sometimes stepping away, as I say, isn't quitting. It's survival. Hence, we're on this 6-month gig, and across the entire series, that's the pattern we're still seeing. It doesn't matter what the genre, what the industry is; it is all the same. People don't want to disappear; they just want a way of showing up that doesn't drain them. Musician, business owner, community leader. The need is still the same for us all. Permission to be human. It's important. Social media is an ungodly place. It really is, but it's a method that we need to take control back of on what we do. Nothing against Facebook or any of the others, but they limit the amount that a post. I think generically, I wouldn't want to be sued by Facebook, but I think generically it's still a post goes to between 2.5% to 5% of people. Why? Because all the platforms are the same, because they want you to boost by and pay for ads and stuff like that. Can't blame them. They're a business. That's what they're there to do.
Exactly.
Exactly. So survival isn't about being allowed. It's about being able to stay. And if staying becomes possible again, then you've got to come back. So maybe coming back does too. So 2 final questions for you before you disappear, mate. Would you consider coming back again, because your music and your energy is so amazing, mate? And myself and so many of those others globally would love to see you back. So would you consider coming back at some point?
That's an interesting question, because I mean, I'd like to get back into performing live, first of all, because that's something I've also taken a step back from. But again, not having a social media presence, all musicians are on social media, they're all online, and getting interaction from venues and that isn't happening for me anymore, because I don't have a page for my music. So that's not happening at the moment. But I have literally, in the last couple of weeks, and I've been picking up the guitar again. I've been playing, and since we spoke the other night as well, I mean, I the girlfriend was around at the weekend, and I've got the guitar out, and she absolutely loved it because she hadn't seen me sing in months. And so I am getting back into that. Whether I'd go back to live streaming, I wouldn't say never. if I could do it without being on social media, then that would be definitely, if there was a way of doing it, like, you're discussing yourself, if I could do it without the social media is terrible for my head, it's terrible for my mental health. I'm off it for a reason, and I'm glad I'm off it, and I have no intention of being back on social media, despite the benefits to music side of things. What I would like to do is find a way to do the music without the need for social media. We shouldn't need it. We shouldn't rely on it. And I would consider live streaming again if it involved not being on social media to do it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about this, but OneStream Live, obviously, you can go to 50 different platforms, including your own website. If you don't have a website, we do a thing called Hosted Live Page, excuse me, which is a branded single landing page, and the URL you can then put out to people. So you don't actually necessarily have to be elsewhere, but people can go to your page, and you can incorporate that just into a simple, one page site, opening page where people can contact you if you need to be. And then every time you go live in the studio, you click a button, it goes live on your Hosted Live page. And I think for people like you and others who don't want to be on social media and maybe don't have a full website, that's a solution. A Hosted Live page from OneStream Live. And that,
we may have to talk after this, because I didn't actually know what all this was.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think for a lot of people, had they realized the power of what a company like OneStream Live does, because you can we'll take the show tonight, and the marketing team will then put it through, and we'll use an AI software tool, Opus Clips, that we use to do a 30-second to 2-minute clip to then to show back out, to then drive people back again. I've got my own, with Livestream Solutions, we've got our own social media content scheduling service, so it makes it easier for people to put the blog articles, put the clips on, and line it through YouTube, etc. So there's a lot more tools now that help you do more with less, and you don't necessarily have to rely, doing a joint venture partner with somebody who can do all that back end stuff for you and help you, monetize it so it covers yours and their time, not making a vast amount of money. So I think there's lots of different things that have changed for people that in 2026, Mark, that they can look at. But I love your openness, and we will take this further. Ladies and gents, I'll be in trouble because I'm over my time, but I love talking about this stuff.
I'll take the blame
with people. If tonight has resonated, if any part of Mark's story has felt familiar, please don't ignore that. That feeling isn't, as I say, weakness, it's information. And here's the invitation. If you are a musician, a creator, a business owner, an organization who wants to stay visible but do it sustainably, then start by simplifying, start by choosing a structure. And we help people put structures together, deciding that your presence should support your life, not consume it. So if you'd like to explore that more, and what it means in practical terms, and whether that's live streaming once properly across platforms using OneStream Live, the Hosted Live pages, or building a content rhythm for your week, for a month, for you and your organization that works quietly in the background through smarter scheduling, then reach out. Comments survive in the comments, whichever platform you're on, and we'll pick those up. Send me a message privately, or like I say, go to OneStream Live. Bottom right hand corner is a little red button with a white envelope, and contact the team there, and they'll speak to you. They can put you in touch with me, or contact me or my team at livestreamsolutions.org. Not for hype, not for pressure, but have the conversation, because we can help you design something very, very easily. I've been Joe Shepherd, proud brand ambassador and streaming partner with OneStream Live, and I'm the founder at Livestream Solutions. We look forward to seeing you all in March. Until then, please take care. Look at smarter ways of doing things in your life that bring you joy and satisfaction. Mark Tween, give us one final thought, mate, on your journey and what you'd advise people to do.
Look after yourself. Do what you need to do, but look after you. Like Joe said, you can't look after anyone else unless you're looking after yourself. So that's the key message. Look after yourself.
Thanks, brother. I'll talk to you soon. Stay well.
Yeah, always a pleasure, mate.
See you all next month. Take care, guys.